Hello, dear viewers, you are on the channel Life Cucumber Brick. Good mood to you, and enjoy listening. Ryan wandered down the street, the rain dripping, but he didn't pay any attention to such little things. Ryan wanted to eat, and there was about half a packet of pasta and even some cooking oil at home. There was a small bag of potatoes, but he figured he could hold out until tonight and maybe get something else. The boy sighed. Food was good, of course but if only he could get some money. Daddy was in trouble, and Ryan didn't know what to do. In fact, things didn't seem right in their family. Ryan, though he was little, knew very well that he had to live differently. Daddy always said, "We have to be patient." How much more patience? No, he was willing to wait, just to know how long it would take. But that wasn't the way they lived. They lived very well. Ryan remembered how they all went to the park together, how his dad would put him on his shoulders, and he would scream with delight. And then the ice cream. Ryan hadn't had ice cream in so long. But then Dad and Mom went somewhere and didn't come. Ryan stayed with Grandma for a while, but after they called at night to say Mom was gone, Grandma went somewhere too. Logan, Ryan's father, would never forget that day. In an instant, his life was shattered in pieces. And if he hadn't listened to Katja, if he had gotten behind the wheel himself. Katja had only had her driver's license for 2 months. They were going to visit friends out of town, and his wife had already started the car in the morning. "Logan, I'll drive. It's evening, there's not much traffic. Ryan won't be with us." He first wanted to object, but then thought, Katja is right. The road there is quiet, not a red highway. She wasn't breaking anything. She was driving, strictly following all the rules. But if she had had a little more experience, she would have had time to react. She would have understood where to turn the wheel, to dodge the SUV, which was rushing at them at breakneck speed. Katja lived only 5 days after the accident. Logan survived, though he was put back together in pieces. He was immediately given a Group 3 disability, but was told that proper treatment and rehabilitation could get him back on his feet. While they were in the hospital, or rather he was, Katja's mother passed away. They were buried on the same day, and Logan couldn't even attend the funeral. Then the struggle for survival began. He knew that the man who had been driving that car had also died. His guilt had not been proven, and even if it had been, Logan didn't want to think about what would have happened if he had to think about how he and Ryan would live. He couldn't stay at his job because he only got around with a cane, and standing at the machine was out of the question. As luck would have it, it was as if his body was broken. As soon as he found a job, all the diseases in him began to activate. No one wanted to keep such a worker for a long time, and some of them, hiding behind the fact that he had let them down, did not return the money they had earned. Apartment debts were piling up. Ryan was growing up, not enough money for clothes. Logan didn't know what was next. He feared only one thing, that Ryan would be taken away from him. So he never asked for help, never took free medicine. Just 2 weeks ago, he was hired at a car wash. He was supposed to wash cars. The owner, a huge-sized man, looked at him doubtfully and said, "Can you do it? It's not an easy job." "Of course I can do it. I have no choice." He worked for a week and already knew that he could not pull it off. And on the 8th day, he came down with a fever. It would have been strange to expect anything different, because all day long his feet were wet and the water wasn't warm at all. Logan held on as best he could. There was no money in the house at that moment, so he was not going to spend money on medicine. He found a pack of aspirin and took 1 pill at a time. When it was too bad, Ryan would hang around him, and all his father could say was, "Be patient for another day or two, and I'll be sure to get up." Ryan was patient. He had been able to make pasta and peel potatoes for a long time, but everything was coming to an end, and Dad was getting worse. Ryan, at 7, was well aware that his father needed to eat well, and he also needed to take medicine, which they didn't have. Ryan cautiously looked out from around the corner of the store. Often this supermarket threw away such good food that it was delicious. Except the local vagrants were snapping it up themselves. 2 were normal and didn't pay any attention to Ryan, and 2 were mean. They wouldn't let him take anything. As luck would have it, all 4 of them were there today. No, they could try, but they weren't exactly beasts of burden. Ryan came around the corner and headed for the carts, but was immediately caught by one of the bums. "Get out of here, puppy. Not enough for us." Ryan ripped out of his arms and quickly ran around the corner, catching his breath. But he wasn't going to find anything today. He turned around and stalked back toward the house. He reached the dumpster, slowed down. Some young woman stopped so close that it was impossible to get through. He waited until she pulled away and moved on, but took only a few steps and froze. Between him and the container lay a bank card. It was so new, so clean, probably someone had accidentally dropped it. Maybe even the same woman who had just dumped the trash here. Ryan turned around, sat down, stared at the map for a while, and then grabbed it and ran. He knew it wasn't a good thing. But if he didn't take it, someone else would, and he really needed it now. There was a drugstore around the corner. He had to go there. "Auntie, I need some medicine for a cold for an adult." The woman looked at him doubtfully. "Actually, we don't sell medicine to children." Some woman intervened. "Yes, sell it to him. This boy from next door. He really only lives with his daddy. And daddy gets sick a lot." One of the women at the window smiled. "Do you have a list of what you need?" "No, but daddy has a fever. He's been coughing all the time, like gurgling, and for almost a week now. I wish you had a doctor. Daddy doesn't want to leave me." The woman quickly put something in a bag, wrote on a piece of paper how to take everything, and said the price. Ryan held out his card with bated breath. She swiped it across the terminal, handed it to him. "Here you go. Make sure Daddy takes everything on time." "Okay, thanks." On his way out of the pharmacy, he was held up by the very woman who had interceded for him. "Wait a minute here." She quickly slipped a loaf, a cartridge of eggs, and a circle of sausage into his hands. Ryan raced home on wings. Now he'd give his dad the medicine, and he'd boil some of that pasta, fry 1 egg each, and cut off a slice of sausage, and they'd have dinner together. The sausage smelled so bad that Ryan even stumbled from time to time, but he was determined not to take a bite out of it. Only at home, only with Daddy. Daisy sat in the car and didn't want to go out, looking at the dark windows of her apartment and knowing that no one was waiting for her there. It had been 3 years since her husband had waited for her. Her beloved Jack had crashed when they had lived only 2 years. He was rushing to see her from a business trip. He'd have been driving almost 24 hours, experts said, probably asleep. The road was wide, and by pure chance there was an oncoming woman who for some reason did not turn off, although the time and place allowed it. Later she learned that the woman behind the wheel of that car was also dead. It did not get any easier. Her husband didn't apply for any compensation. Dad quickly hushed it up, and Daisy tried to forget that period. It wasn't working out so well. The loneliness and pain were literally eating away at her. At work, it was more or less the same. As soon as she got home, there were tears in her eyes. The phone beeped in her pocket. She pulled it out and looked at the screen surprised. A drugstore purchase. What the hell? Daisy opened her purse, rummaging through her pockets. The card was nowhere to be found. Hell yeah. She quickly dialed the bank's number and asked them to block the card. and she drove to the pharmacy where the text message had come from. 15 minutes later, she knew that the card had been paid for by a small, poorly dressed boy. He bought medicine for his daddy, and it took her another 20 minutes to find the address where that boy lived. She didn't think to call the police right away. The amount was small and the card was blocked, but when she found out it was a child, she decided she had to talk to his parents. Daisy paused at the door, as if gathering her thoughts, then pressed the bell. The door was opened by a boy about 7 years old. "Hello, are you here to see us?" "Come in." Daisy was a little confused. A polite look, open, clean. "Hello, you're Ryan." "Yes, how do you know me?" Before Daisy could answer, a man walked into the hallway, leaning on his cane. He looked tired, sickly, but smiled at her. "How do you do?" Daisy was somehow completely confused, as if it is improper to swear in such a situation. And the man said, "Maybe some tea, but we probably don't have any sugar." He threw up his hands. Daisy shook her head negatively. "I should have said something. I dropped the map somewhere in your yard. Boys run around a lot, so I asked where they lived." Ryan blushed immediately, went somewhere, and came back with a map. "This one." Logan began to understand where the cure came from. No neighbors seemed to give them. And he turned to his son. "Ryan, you tricked me." The kid sniffed his nose. "Daddy, yes, I lied to you. I found this card in a dumpster. Thought I'd try the drugstore. You really need your medicine." Logan squeezed his eyes shut, then opened them and looked at Daisy. "Will you excuse me, please? I'll pay everything back from my pension." And then Daisy was pierced. She realized why the man's face seemed familiar to her. "You are Logan." He looked at her in surprise. "Yes, do we know each other?" "Was your wife's name Katie?" "Yes." "I'm sorry, I don't understand." Daisy sank into a chair in the hallway and burst into tears. She had seen a picture of the man. She'd been in the hospital at the time and hadn't met him in person. Logan looked at her confusedly, at Ryan, then commanded, "Son, get some water quickly." Daisy left. She didn't say a word about how she knew them. The next day, she went to her father's office and had a big fight with him. The father, who loved his daughter and was more worried about her than he was about himself, called the secretary as soon as she left the office. "Anna, not for service, but for friendship. Here is the address. Look, help, what you can. Administration, what you cannot, from me personally." Anna looked at him astonished. "Within what limits?" "Within all limits." He was already shouting. The girl jumped out of the office, and he collapsed in his chair and grabbed his head. The last thing he wanted was for his Daisy to get upset. She'd been through enough. Daisy was sitting in the park. It had been 3 months since she had been to Logan and Ryan's. She really wanted to go see them again, but she didn't know what the excuse was. Her dad told her the same day that all help would be given to Alexei, adding that he helped from himself as well. "Hello, it's you. I recognized you. You're the magician who came to us, and everything became all right." She looked at Ryan with amazement. The boy was wearing a new tracksuit and white sneakers. In fact, he was clean-cut, though still skinny. "Ryan, Daddy and I are going for a walk." "Daddy." Logan walked toward them. Daisy looked at him and didn't recognize him. He seemed to be the same person, but he was different. "Hello, I take it you made a mess of things." Logan smiled slightly. Daisy shrugged. "I just had this opportunity. How are you feeling?" "Much better, thank you. Do you come here often?" They got to talking somehow imperceptibly. Logan was not only well-read, but also had a good sense of humor. They agreed that they would meet in the park the next day. After 2 months, Daisy realized she had to admit that her relationship with Logan had gone too far. More than anything, Daisy was afraid of losing him, but she couldn't cheat on him either. When he sat down next to her in the park, where she had invited them, Daisy immediately spoke. "Logan, I can't do this anymore. I love you very much, even though I was sure I could never love you again. That's why I don't want it to come between us. I should have said it all at once, but I couldn't." Anyway, she sobbed, and Logan put his hand on her shoulder. "And no need, I recognized you right away, back when you first came to us. Thank you for wanting to tell me, but I don't understand why you're crying. You weren't the one who was driving that car." Daisy clung to him and burst into tears. They were tears of relief, though, rather than pain. Logan stroked her hair and thought that life was giving them another chance to be happy. If you liked the story, please support me with a thumbs up button. It's only one click for you, but it means a lot to me. Thank you.